Alright, time to record another video, fellas. I just see the mic peaking like crazy when I talk. That's always fun. You guys really latched onto that prom thing in that last video I posted, didn't ya? Holy cow, every comment. Hey, I appreciate it because you weren't talking about that WonderCon footage or Wonderfest footage or whatever the hell it was. So I appreciate it, the IMAX footage. Let's do some set visits. What's up, everybody? D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla King of the Monsters news and updates. That is right, we're doing some set visits today. Looks like we're going to make it through Bloody, Disgusting, and Nerdist. That's the ones that I'd assume. I don't think we're going to be able to get into the IGN stuff because they just have too much. We'll try and bang out these two set visits because there's quite a bit to the Bloody, Disgusting one and not a lot to the Nerdist one. So that is fair enough. It's a nice balance. All right, starting out, I'm just going to cover everything. We do know a lot of this stuff, and we have talked about it in the previous set videos, but these are all connected, so there is going to be some overlap. Now, starting out, they told us that Charles Dance will in fact obtain the Orca and the Russells at some point in the movie. Side note though, unlike what the Bloody Disgusting article suggests, the Orca is not Mothra's codename in the movie. The Orca is the device that Madison Russell and Emma Russell both have. I said Madison first, but it's Emma Russell's device. Madison just winds up with it. It turns out Mark Russell, he just wants all the Titans dead, I guess. I guess he's just over it. He's like, yeah, they suck, which is interesting because previously we heard that he doesn't really care about them. He just doesn't like Godzilla, but I guess they're telling us that Mark wants them all gone. Here's a little fun fact. O'Shea Jackson Jr. would mess up G-Force and G-Team sometimes, so sometimes when he'd be talking about G-Team, he'd say G-Force. Just goes to show he knows his Godzilla stuff, or at least he loves his Godzilla stuff, so he's like goofing on it because he can't keep them straight because he just loves it all. This also explains why in the Joe Blow article, when they're talking about G-Team, they'd occasionally refer to it, actually not occasionally, they just flat out refer to it as G-Force. So this would explain that. It's just because, they probably heard it from O'Shea, who was just messing up because he's got all his stuff mixed up in his head. I do the same thing. I can't blame him. G-Team consists of the best of the best of the best. So they are the top of the line soldiers, and they apparently, here's the quote, they eat kaiju for breakfast. They're going into this prepared, ready to go. Kind of adds on to what we've heard before where O'Shea's character Barnes, he is just not really fazed by any of what's happening because he's just dealt with it. I'm not sure how. I don't think that the Titans have been popping up on Earth since 2014. It seems like in this new movie they're all gonna surface again, and we haven't seen them since 2014, but I guess he's just like, yeah, this is the world we live in, so I might as well get used to it. Again, we have the quote, this movie's putting the god back in Godzilla. They're trying to make him much more of a biblical character in this film, which is cool. Then you got the Michael Dougherty quote again, if you add Godzilla to anything, it makes it better. And Michael Dougherty, the way he did it was because he was talking about when he was a kid, he used to draw Godzilla in his Bible. So you got the Bible, and Michael Dougherty's like, what would make it better? Godzilla. Hey, and now he's doing it the other way around. He's like, what would make Godzilla better? The Bible. So there you go. It's all good. It's all connected. Again, we hear that this is the Aliens to Gareth Edwards' Alien with 2014. Dougherty respects the groundwork and vision Edwards had, but he wants to build onto it and make it much more accessible to wider audiences. That's a very good thing. Hopefully that works so that more people will go and see this movie. Michael Dougherty says that this time around we don't have a Ford Brody at the center of the story. We have Monarch. This is an ensemble cast, which I find very interesting. I was convinced that Mark Russell would be the main character in this movie and that it would center around his journey to get his family back, similar to 2014, although this time I thought we were also going to see the other half of the family's perspective throughout. We see Elle and Sam a little bit in 2014, but I thought this time around it was going to be kind of half and half between Emma Russell and Madison Russell and what they're doing and what Mark Russell is doing. But it turns out that according to this, it's going to be an ensemble cast, so it's just straight up going to be Monarch, who is viewed as a team of heroes doing their best to save the world. Really cool. I really like the idea of Monarch. I think it's the most interesting thing to come out of Godzilla 2014, and I really want to see it developed. I really liked what they did with it in Kong Skull Island, having it be like at the end of its days being shut down and Kong being the thing that revitalized it. And I guess now they are going to really have Monarch at the top of its game because now, of course, Godzilla has revealed himself to the public, so everyone wants Monarch to be on their game. Something that makes me happy is that they've addressed the humor in this movie, and they said that it's not going to be like knee-slapping, hilarious jokes throughout the whole thing. There's just going to be some tongue-in-cheek moments, which I appreciate. Don't know what that expression means. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, tongue-in-cheek, I don't get it, but I appreciate appreciate it. I understand what it means. I appreciate that it won't be just in-your-face humor and that they're gonna save it for some good moments. Hopefully it's not like MCU where it's just every character is way smarter than they should be and way quippier than they should be with the jokes. You know, it takes a certain level of intelligence to be able to sit there and crack jokes on the fly like the Marvel characters do. And I just, you know, people in real life aren't that smart and funny. I can tell you from going to school, being in public education, people just, they're not very good at the quips. So yeah, I think as long as we don't have too much of that in this movie, it should be fine. I like the idea that this world never belonged to us. Ancient species ruled this earth long before we were here. Humans are the invasive species. Really cool. You know, it goes back to the whole thing we heard in Kong Skull Island where Bill Randa was like, if we keep our heads down, they will take this world back. This movie is showing us they are going to take this world back, or at least they are going to try. And Godzilla's going to probably have to stop them. Not sure why he would. I think Godzilla, realistically here, Godzilla would probably be like, hey, yeah, these humans with their big nuclear bombs and all their pollution, yeah, they're the problem on Earth. I need to balance that out. And that, I think, is a really good, natural way in the story you can push Godzilla into being the antagonist. Going way back to some of the first videos I've ever made, the 15 things I wanted to happen in Godzilla 2, I wanted Godzilla to become more of an antagonist as the series went on. Not necessarily, don't make him straight up the bad guy, but make him more of an antagonistic force. The way you can do that is by having Godzilla really just not like humans, because humans really just don't appreciate Godzilla's world. Michael Dougherty hinted to that at the WonderCon panel. Michael Dougherty said, yeah, the more interesting aspect of this film is how Godzilla responds to us, not if Godzilla, whatever the question he was answering was. I really like that idea that you can have Godzilla go, hey, why should we let these invasive species, why should we let these parasites essentially destroy our planet? We can stop them. I don't think Godzilla realistically should try and stop the other Titans from rising up. I think he'd be okay with it. Just as long as the other Titans don't interfere with the natural order of things, I really don't think Godzilla would have a problem with it. There was some talk of some concept art being revealed that showed stone etchings of two twin girls alongside Mothra. So here we have the idea that the fairies are making a cameo. Once again, they may not be little tiny fairy girls like they have been previously, but they may still show up in some way, shape, or form. I really like that. I've talked in the past about how I think Madison Russell has the perfect opportunity to connect with the twin fairies when she touches Mothra's head. But if they're gonna just pay tribute to it by being like, at one point, yes, there were two twin girls who worshipped Mothra and who were the priestesses of this society. Is that what you call that? I don't know. They were like the heads of the religion. I'm totally okay with that. We don't need to see them in the movie just as long as we tip the hat to them. O'Shea Jackson Jr. confirms that there are two fights between Godzilla and Ghidorah in the movie. We now know that for sure based off footage we've seen as well. There's definitely a fight between Godzilla and Ghidorah in the Arctic, and then there's the big battle at the end of the film. Michael Dougherty talks about how when they designed Mothra, they designed her with the idea of having it so that if you looked up into the night sky above you and she was doing her god rays or she was just glowing blue like she does, all that light and the form of her, you would think she was an angel. And there is some spoilery footage out there, so I won't bring it up in this video, but there is some spoilery footage out there that shows Mothra a little more than we've seen her in the other trailers. And this is from the beautiful TV spot for those of you who don't know. I don't watch any of the other stuff. There is some footage of her out there that really highlights the fact that she looks like an angel in this movie, and I've talked about that in the beautiful TV spot breakdown, so go check that out if you want. I love that. I really am a big fan of that idea. We have some minor details on those new Titans that we covered in the previous set visit video. What we learned is that the Abaddon comes from Cambodia. Leviathan, who's a new one that we're just hearing of, comes from beneath the Indian Ocean. That's a sea monster from the Bible, for those of you who don't know. Sargon is from Mexico. I guess he's down there with Rodan somewhere, and that is the name of the first ruler of the Akkadian Empire. So I'm not sure what the Akkadian Empire is, but he's the first ruler of it. Some Central American empire anyways, I think. Now this isn't canon, but Michael Dougherty says he likes to pretend that Outpost 31 burned down in 1982, so they had to build a new outpost in the Arctic. That was Outpost 32. That's what Monarch runs, and that's where they found Ghidorah. Obviously, he is saying that in his version of the continuity, in his own mind, not necessarily his version of the continuity, I shouldn't say, in his version of what he likes to pretend happened, the events of the movie The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing from 82, play out, and then Monarch, I guess, would have been involved in that. Now they've moved to 32. That's a really cool idea, but obviously it's not canon. They do talk about how there's going to be a lot more horror elements with this movie than in 2014, and really the franchise history. This is going to be the Godzilla movie with the most horror elements since probably the 54 movie. I would assume it doesn't pass that in terms of horror elements, but it's going to have a lot of that in the movie with much more suspense suspense, fear, and tension, and occasional gross-out moments. I don't know what that means in terms of a Godzilla movie, but that'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure how, when, why, or where, but regeneration is said to play a part in the film, so that is something to keep our eyes out. Ghidorah is deliberately hunting down Madison Russell and Fenway Park. We've talked about that in previous videos. Kyle Chandler was amazed by the nuclear allegory in the 1954 Godzilla movie, and especially he was amazed at how open Honda was at criticizing the atomic bomb in such a tense political climate. I like hearing Kyle Chandler talk about this stuff. I really like all of them talking about the previous Godzilla movies and paying tribute to it and acknowledging that they've happened and just understanding their significance and importance. So I appreciate Kyle Chandler's appreciation of the film. I like the quote here, Godzilla is the star of the movie. I do believe that was Kyle Chandler who said that. He's going back to kind of the lesson that we learned back in 54, the story that Akira Takarada always loves to tell, where he got on set for Godzilla for the first one. He was all happy and he's like all spry and he's like, I'm the star of the movie. And someone on Toho turned to him, one of the crew members, and was like, nope, Godzilla's the star of the movie. So it's cool to see that Kyle Chandler here now, 60-something years later, saying the same thing. And then, of course, Michael Dougherty says he hopes Monarch is passed on properly to Godzilla vs. Kong and they continue to do with Monarch what he started them down the path of, because Michael Dougherty doesn't seem to really love how not great Monarch was in Kong Skull Island and Godzilla 2014. Now, in Kong Skull Island, there is an in-story universe for why they are just at the end of their days. And then in Godzilla 2014, we can assume that because there haven't been any Titans showing up for such a long time, Monarch is just not very well funded. So Michael Dougherty saying he hopes that they pass on the super futuristic, really on it version of Monarch into Godzilla vs. Kong. And I'd assume that's what he helped out with when he did rewrites for the Godzilla vs. Kong script, was helping pass on Monarch properly. Now let's get into the Nerdist interview. There really isn't hardly anything to talk about here, so we can blast through it super quick. O'Shea Jackson Jr. views Godzilla as one of his all-time heroes ever since he was a little kid. He just loves the character. He loves all incarnations of Godzilla, except that he thinks Shin Godzilla has an ugly design, and he doesn't like some of the cat-like Godzilla designs, but he loves the characterization of all Godzillas. He also likes Godzilla to be a bit more of a good guy than a bad guy. Doesn't really matter. The other thing he said was he hopes to have a Straight Outta Compton versus Godzilla kind of reunion with the Kong Skull Island boys, because Corey Hawkins and Jason Mitchell's, I believe those were the two from Kong Skull Island that were also in Straight Outta Compton, and now he's of course in Godzilla King of the Monsters, so you have a whole bunch of the Straight Outta Compton cast members within the Monsterverse, so he wants to do like a reunion in some point. Probably Godzilla vs. Kong would be the most fitting for that. Doesn't look like that's actually going to get to happen, because it doesn't look like any of those old Kong Skull Island characters, other than maybe Houston Brooks, are going to be returning for any of the other Monsterverse films. Also, I don't think Barnes is returning for Godzilla vs. Kong as well. I don't think he's been spotted on set, so I think he is out of the Monsterverse at this point. That'll do it for this one, boys and girls. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. D-Man out.